In a second-hand set of dimensions, on an astral plane that was never meant to fly, through wavering star mists, see the Grey Satuin. Drifting onwards through space, atop the shell of the world's turtle, are 4 giant elephants, upon whose broad shoulders rests the Discworld. Welcome to Dining Table Discworld. We're reading through the Discworld novels and discussing them at our dining table. Be aware there will be spoilers for the current book and others in the series.
Hello, welcome to Dining Table Discworld. I'm Dave.
I'm Kathy.
And today we're on book 28 of the Discworld series. And we are with the Amazing Maurice and his Educated Rodents. So expect a rat-tacular time. you come here for the laugh. So, Kathy, what's our synopsis?
The Amazing Maurice is a streetwise cat who can talk and think. He's fallen in with a clan of talking, thinking rats, so when he sees a stupid-looking kid with a pipe, the whole scam comes together. They travel from town to town, creating a plague of rats who whittle and sometimes dance, where citizens can see them. Then the stupid-looking kid collects the money after apparently sending the rats away. Meanwhile, the clan are figuring out how they fit in the world as smart rats. The older ones, including leader Hammonpork, remember how much simpler it was before all this thinking came along. The younger ones wonder about shadows and what happens when you meet the bone rat. Dangerous Beans, the weakest but smartest rat, tries to compile a set of rules for living and dreams of an island utopia inspired by a picture book. When they agree to do the scam once more in Bad Blintz, they find a starving populace, arrogant rat catchers, and tunnels empty of any living rats. Nasty things are happening above and below ground, and everyone, even the mayor's fanciful daughter, will be at risk.
I think this is one we both came to a lot later than published. So this was published 2001.
No, I didn't come to it that much later.
Okay, I came to it quite late.
That's right. No, it was definitely one I read in the midst of me kind of reading Discworld as a teenager. 2001, I would only have recently started reading Discworld, so I don't think I read it till a bit later. But I think I had a hardback copy. The thing that's odd for me is why I don't remember it better.
No.
Because as a teenager, so I decided mice were my favourite animal, and I eventually worked my mother up to allow me to have pet mice, because she's not terribly keen on them as animals. And so stuff with mice and rats was kind of the thing I was very interested in. I used to collect ornaments and things. So this, you would have thought would be right up my alley, and I just don't remember it very well, which doesn't make a lot of sense to me, which makes me think possibly I was doing exams around that time or something.
Maybe.
But yeah, I did definitely read it. So I definitely read this one before I came to university.
Fair enough. I definitely came to this later than... so obviously this was published the same year as Last Hero. And I think, because it's a young adult children's... It's got a... this copy is an ex-library copy, so it's got a red dot on the spine, which means it's a teenage. But I think it's lower end of teenage rather than upper end. Well, when I read it was with the copy, the discarded copy from the library.
Which is weird that we still have, and we didn't keep my copy that I had.
But I don't...
When we
a little bit of glimpse into our background. When we combined, I don't remember giving a hardback copy to the library.
Did I just borrow it from a library then?
I honestly can't.
I definitely read this before I read Last Hero, because I didn't read Last Hero until I read your copy when I was at university.
But all of our Pratchett's went to the smaller library, and it's not there.
Okay, so it's weird that I don't remember this book and apparently didn't own a copy, even though because I had a whole shelf of Discworlds.
I don't know whether because this is obviously it's a young adult. This is his first Discworld YA. Obviously, we're coming up to
We Free Men?
Yes, soon. But this is a...
No, that's fair enough. I mean, maybe that's why I didn't remember it so well, because I didn't have it to reread. I'm not sure exactly. I just assumed I'd bought a copy. I mean, I know I'd read it once before, and I know I'd read it before I came to university. But that's why I think maybe I was doing exams of some kind, perhaps.
This is one that we're not, no shade on the book itself. It's not because
it's just our situation.
Yeah, it was just I think just because it was a YA one and didn't feel like it fit within. It's not one of the standard.
But there are plenty of standalones.
No, but it just
I mean, I think as a Discworld book, it does lift out quite a bit.
Yes.
The fact they mention it's Ubervold is the main thing that means it's Discworld, and I suppose also the fact that you've got they're from Ankh-Morpork and something magical waste.
They mention some of the other a couple of other cities.
Yeah, so they mention geography in Discworld, and I suppose we know that some sort of magical, like, bio-waste or something is what made the animals smart, so it wasn't, like, Hollywood magic. Although I feel like with Gaspo, it started with Hollywood, but then later it sort of seemed to mention the university as well. Yeah. But anyway, I know it doesn't feel like it has to be Discworld. It's not as embedded as other stuff.
No, I think it works. I mean, obviously, you've got talking rats and
a talking cat.
A talking cat. It might be more difficult to pull off in a more, medieval, historical...
Well, but, I mean, you have talking animal stories. Yeah, that's a thing that exists.
Which we'll go into, I'm sure, later.
Yes, and there's a whole variety of books like that. It doesn't really explain it, just has it as a thing. I think the point with this is that they are different to other rats.
I think the basic story, yes, but I think what makes it possibly fun is the other characters, like the mayor's daughter.
Yeah, but none of that requires it to be Discworld.
No,
it could just be a fantasy, because he's written obviously other things.
But I think it works better because, she can reference all the things that she does. Mm. I think it works, because we've got that kind of nod and a wink reference to other things.
I noticed it's called A Story of Discworld.
Yes.
It's not a Discworld novel, or Last Hero was a Discworld fable. It's not a novel. This is a novel, but it's a children's novel, or like a YA novel. But it's not... It's kind of it's like it's been put in its own category.
Yeah.
Which I don't think happens later, but I wonder if, because this is the first one they were sort of trying it out a bit, because as you say, it's sort of like, younger end of YA, particularly how YA is now. Obviously, when that was written, that was a different category. I mean, the fact the libraries called it teenage.
Well, yes,
because that was
that's what we call it, because it was for teenagers.
It's like how everyone says audiobooks now, but the libraries would say talking books. Yes. So it's just like the marketing categories aren't the same as what we've been filing things in the library for a long time.
But we can change. Libraries can change, honest.
Yeah.
Honest.
I mean, the fact that the title and the underlying concept was mentioned by a member of the faculty as an aside back in Reaper Man.
Yes. Obviously, it's a different version then.
Well, that's the title, and but sort of, and that sounds like the Amazing Maurice was the guy doing it. So it's clearly like a cool idea, and that he'd mentioned as an aside as a thing that existed.
Yeah. I mean,
and then it's done something different.
It was a scam. It was run in Ankh-Morpork.
This is a scam.
Yeah, well, it was a scam, but it was run in Ankh-Morpork. I've got to say, I don't know. It seems like the Ankh-Morpork's got its own ways of dealing with rats. I don't necessarily think,
Didn't veterinary want to tax the rat farms?
Yes.
So, I wonder if the fact that somebody in Discworld mentioned it is why it's like this has to be in Discworld. I don't know.
Yeah. It's also quite big, the city, Ankh-Morpork. Might be more difficult to pull off. But
when they've only got a certain number of rats,
yeah. I mean, indeterminate. They don't really specify how many, but where should we start?
So, Maurice,
which we're calling Maurice on the basis that he's from Ankh-Morpork, and Maurice possibly sounds a bit too posh for him.
Because it's Maurice, but spelled Maurice, so you could say it Maurice.
Yes.
But I think either's probably valid.
Yeah, but I personally think he would definitely be a Maurice.
I mean, I've known people who have that spelling say it both ways.
Yeah. So he is the brains behind the scam. I wouldn't say outfit, because I feel that's dangerous beans, but, the brains behind the scam.
Well, so he's a cat who has the same thing as the rats, and that they all suddenly realise they could start talking and thinking and reading and became something a bit different to others of their species. And very early on, I mean, he's obviously very cynical. He sees the stupid-looking kid with the pipe. I think there's enough known about pipers. That's the thing, because rat pipers are obviously a thing that exists in the Discworld, as well as rat catchers. And he just comes up with the scam. And it's interesting, because this actually starts with, we're going to do it's one last job.
It is the one last job, yes.
I mean, Maurice wants to keep going, but the rats are starting to feel ethically uncertain about this.
But also they've worked out that Maurice has been not exactly truthful in how much money they have. And it turns out that they have significantly more money than they thought they did. And I think it's, in some respects as well, the rats, there's a limited, what they wanted. Well, Dangerous Beans wants the rat utopia. I'm not sure what the others really...
I think we'll get into that, yeah.
But
Maurice's whole thing is he's very cynical, and he keeps, going on about being a cat, and acting like that makes him very amoral, and that sort of thing. Early on, there's obviously a bit of establishing stuff about what happened before, and the sort of background character, and there's always a bit of like, isn't it odd how you managed to do this when you didn't eat the magical waste from the dump that we all lived on? I mean, the cat didn't live there. No. And it's very clear early on that he ate a rat who had eaten that, and so that made him smart. And he does know it. What I wasn't sure about was whether the reader is, like, if the reader's a kid, do they realise that? I guess it'll depend on the individual.
Yes.
So whether you pick that up, because the rats don't know it. And so it's this thing that Maurice is a bit curmudgeonly. The rats, largely, particularly Dangerous Beans, seem to believe in him. You know, they've gone along with this. It's because them, you know, they have they travel around, but they have a certain level of comfort, a certain level of understanding that they're doing something to best their own future. The money doesn't seem to be an important part of them, but it's either comfort or something a bit more philosophical that they're after in different groups. And it's obviously life that's given them a bit of interest and stuff to do with those brains they've got now.
I don't imagine for a lot of it is just it's giving them an opportunity to kind of start understanding themselves, you know, in a way, you know.
Well, it gives them, sort of, I guess, space to do that. I guess, like, headspace. And the thing is that Maurice is guilty about what happened with the other rat.
I mean, he keeps checking every time he catches a mouse and
anything. He catches anything, he asks if he can talk.
Yeah, anything, just, you know.
Well, if we go into that, so we find out kind of later, because it kind of circles back around at some point. They talk about additives.
Yeah.
The rats, incidentally, all got their names from stuff that was in the dump, which has been largely food packets. And they just chose names that sound good. So additives is the one who disappeared. And then Maurice describes additives exactly.
Although it does give, it's a slight tangent, some of these things are they really on food packages in the Discworld? Additives?
Well, this is the thing.
Sorry, you know.
Again, that's one of the things that makes me feel less Discworldy and more, you know, yes.
Ham and pork, dangerous beans, all fine. Additives? Okay. I mean, you know, additives are, you know, does how much horse does this meat have in it, you know?
Well, yeah.
Anyway, that's just a...
Well, the thing is that the rats actually became smart, and then Maurice ate additives, and then additives obviously had stuff in, so that made him smart. Although, I guess, were other cats not hunting near there? But anyway, and they sort of say, oh, well, additives wasn't very good at talking. Like even though he could talk, he found it difficult. Like, he had the stammer or stutter or some sort of speech impediment.
Yeah. And
the implication is that Maurice ate him without realising he could talk. But the other implication is, but he was just a cat then and would have eaten anything. So it's this weird, it's a weird double thing. Like, Maurice always checks because he feels bad about having done it, but he wouldn't have felt bad at the time because he was just a cat then.
But now he can feel bad.
But why would it then matter if additives could have talked then? It's almost like Maurice is suggesting he used to check before, and it's like, well, I don't think anyone expects you to, because, again, the older rats who had this happen to them are aware how things used to be, and then Maurice is aware it used to be simpler as well.
Yeah, I think it's just a way of coping now that he's got... Now that
because he didn't know that rat had a speech impediment until they mentioned it. So I think he was like, oh, it's perhaps not quite my fault. And it's like, but it wouldn't be your fault anyway, because you're a cat and you saw a rat and you caught it and you ate it.
Yeah, I think he's not as amoral as he thinks he is.
Well, no, that's always the thing. It's that the kind of rogue with a heart of gold type thing. And then he does do some self-sacrifice later on.
No, which
I guess we'll get to when we talk about the end. So he's very kind of streetwise and kind of quite snarky.
Yes.
Then just kind of as an aside to Maurice, because they seem to spend a lot of time together, is the stupid-looking kid, who it turns out is called Keith.
But no one thinks to ask him what his name is.
None of the animals do. It's only when a human asks him. And they say, oh, my name's Keith. And they're like, you should have said, what, you have a name? Because the cats and rats had just been calling him stupid-looking kid. But we don't know how long that is, because it might have only been a year.
It's difficult,
because rats don't live very long.
So obviously, at some point, they've left Ankh-Morpork, because they specifically say that they don't pick Keith up in Ankh-Morpork.
No.
So
which kind of ties into the Music Guild thing.
Yeah. So they leave Ankh-Morpork, go somewhere else.
Maurice sees Keith playing a pipe.
And then realise he's running around with a bunch of rats and goes, ha-ha! But yeah, I mean, given the rat's lifespan, you're not looking that very long.
It could have been a year.
Now I'm willing to give them a little bit of a magical life extendance, on it.
Well, just from being smart also, because they figure out traps and poison and how to disarm them and deal with that.
Yeah, and they're we're getting onto the rats a bit, but they are physically bigger than their other rats because they're better fed, they're better.
Yeah, well they're a bit. Yeah, they're a bit bigger. It's not like. They're not like the African rat size.
No, but they're in better health.
They're in better condition.
Back to Keith. Sorry.
Yeah, so Keith... it's quite nice that there's a bit where Keith and Maurice are obviously proud of the rats. At one point, Human refers to them as his rats and goes, they're not our rats, they're their rats.
Yes.
So Keith's understood. And also there's a point that Maurice at one point is very proud that they always work fast. It's like, oh yeah, they work fast. So
Yes.
it's this thing that they've all kind of bonded as a group, even though the rats are kind of a bit their own thing, and Maurice and Keith are kind of outliers within that group, even though they're kind of, Maurice is kind of running the scam, and Keith's obviously the human mouthpiece. Yes. But yes, Keith's obviously somebody who's very into his music. That's the main thing he cares about. So he says something about being raised in the Musicians Guild.
Yeah.
As a foundling, and we decided that probably wasn't the Musicians Guild of Ankh-Morpork because we don't know when this is. This could be almost any sort of time within the Discworld, the time periods that we've had.
There's no
because it doesn't tie into any other events.
No,
I mean even pyramids. The argument of that being a long time ago. There's some stuff that could be a slight connection, but this could be kind of any when, really.
I mean, ironically, it could have been the other way around. It could have been that
it could be.
This is the story, this is the story that the when we hear about the rats, the piper in Reaper Man, he was actually copying.
Yes.
This
yeah,
event,
that's true. Good point. Yeah.
Not the other way round.
Yes. Well, but then wouldn't people know about Bad Blintz at that point?
Yeah, but how much does that, Superfile,
yeah.
how much does that...
Yeah, no, that's true. So, because the Musicians Guild that we saw in Soul Music was sort of...
soulless money-grabbing...
Well, it was above a shop. It was some rooms above a shop, and then there was that guy, Mr... I forget his name, but the money-grabbing guy, who isn't the musicians, very much the accountant of it, but then is also kind of like a murderous administrator type of person. But yeah, it wasn't the kind of place that would take in foundlings because they didn't have a premises. Yeah. And Keith actually describes them as being as being nice. I mean, obviously this kid's kind of wandered off and been lost track of. Although, again, I'm not quite sure when they say kid how old he is.
No. I mean, again, there really isn't enough, well, I say enough time after Soulmate because we've just literally said that it could happen at any point. But, I think the Musicians Guild, unless it's it has, it would have to change quite a lot. But
it might have done because all those people who bought guitars might have actually joined. And there's various things that could have happened, but it does feel very different. So another town seems to make more with the Musicians Guild seems to make a bit more sense because again you get the sense that the Musicians Guild in Ankh-Morpork is one of the newer ones that's come up since Colour of Magic, like Fantastic sort of time, and that's why it's a bit of a smaller concern. Right, so we've gone to the various rats.
Many rats.
Yes. So Dangerous Beans. He's very philosophical. It's this massive intellectual, but physically weak, which is a bit of a trope.
Yeah, he's an albino, so,
Well, it doesn't mean he's physically weak, though.
No, okay, but he's poor eyesight.
Yes, poor eyesight, but also, well, eyesight isn't the main thing for rats. But yes, he's got bad eyesight for a rat, I'm meaning more broadly, there's like a trope of characters who have physical limitations, but then they're intellectually, like, very...
The giant brain on the spindly body.
Yeah, kind of. He's very big on the idea of cooperation and having these rules for a living. The rats came across this book called Mr. Bundsey Has an Adventure, which one assumes is in conversation with Beatrix Potter and maybe Wind in the Willows, or maybe just modern picture books where, animals are wearing clothes. And each chapter has a little extract from Mr. Bundsey Has an Adventure, and it's clear there are various animals with clothes, live in a community, and then Mr. Bundsey goes into the wood.
The dark wood.
Yes, it's dark wood. And then the rat character rescues him. And I think having a rat character be heroic, but if you look at most depictions of rats, there tends to be this weird thing where people are like, ooh, rats, ugh. And then they're always shown as being very pointy and, like, angry and dangerous. But then people are like, oh, mice. I mean, people don't always like mice either. But they seem to have a bit of a cuddlier kind of reputation, maybe because they're smaller.
I mean, obviously, famously the rats and the weasels and the stoats from Wind of the Willows.
Those weren't rats; they were mostly weasels and some stoats and ferrets.
Okay.
Because Ratty,
true,
who is admittedly a water vole, but Ratty was on Mr. Toad's side.
Where was the rats? Redwall.
Oh, you see, I've not read Redwall, which again probably a bit odd considering my interest at the time, but I never quite got into it. But anyway, and he's got this idea of a kind of island utopia where the rats can build a society, which I think is what he is aiming for, but like in kind of a vague way. But in the meantime, he comes up with these rules, and there's various things about cooperation, but also about not harming or killing other rats and not eating them.
Yes.
And you're a bit like, oh, but then you're like, well, actually, various animals do in Extremis eat, like, resort to cannibalism, and there is a horrible bit in the book. That's one thing, this book is a lot grimmer
it is
than you'd expect.
Grim, yeah.
It's like, oh, grim, well,
grim
almost a pun, yes, grim with two M's, which we'll get to. this idea that, if a rat has died, then it's fine to eat. The body's then food.
Except for the green wobbly bit.
They keep mentioning the green wobbly bit. But then he's like, well, no, we shouldn't do that. And he's one that I think is... I guess he's younger because he doesn't remember the prick before so much. No. But I don't think he's, like, the youngest younger ones. He kind of sees what the problem is with humanity, So one person goes, you will have worked out there is a race in this world which steals and kills and spreads disease and despoils what it cannot use. It's like, yes, that's easy. It's called humanity. Yeah. And this goes into the thing that as humans, we have made so many changes. We've taken away natural environments and created man-made ones. And we tend to treat as vermin the animals that adapt best to that. Like, rats, mice, pigeons.
Yeah.
But those are just the animals that are doing well off of what we have done. Yeah. There's quite a good bit in the book Urban Jungle where this point is made. That, the animals that live off of our waste are treated as dirty. But we're the ones that put the waste there.
Yes.
We've just created niches for them.
Yeah.
This is the bit that made me think of that is, again, at one point Dangerous Beans goes, once we were just another squeaking thing in the forest, then men built barns and pantries full of food. Of course we took what we could, and so they called us vermin.
Yeah.
And then there's a bit partway through where Dangerous Beans is talking to the antagonist, who's trying to get him to join him, and it's like, well, you think for many rats, but you don't think of them. It's like, I won't join you, liar in the dark, I prefer our way. We are silly and weak sometimes, but together we are strong. You have plans for rats, well, I have dreams for them.
Yeah.
And this is the thing, Dangerous Beans is this visionary. And Maurice at one point describes him as being, well, dangerous.
Yes.
And
the most dangerous.
The most dangerous. Because he lives in stories, because he has this overarching kind of story idea. And
which
Maurice...
is an interesting reflection on another character.
Yes, which we'll get to, yes. And he thinks that means he doesn't respond to reality. And I think he leans a bit too much on that book, and that there's a point when somebody kind of reveals that it's definitely just fiction. There's a whole series of them and they're a bit silly childish books, and for a while it seems like maybe that's done something to Dangerous Beans, but he kind of gets through that. At the end of the day, his vision has a lot of rats are swayed by that. He's giving them something that they didn't have before, that most rats don't have, an idea of what they themselves are in a world where they don't really fit. It's quite funny because Keith sort of says, I always thought Dangerous Beans was a very nice rat. And Maurice explains, well, no, it's not that. But actually, Dangerous Beans is the one that Maurice sort of sacrifices himself for.
Yes. Well, because they need his vision. They need his... Otherwise, they could end up potentially not doing anything with their existence. Or
they could end up riding roughshod over another rat population. You could see a version where they ended up enslaving or domineering or that sort of, rat race is a thing that very much describes humans, but that sort of approach. And just to talk about another character in relation to Dangerous Beans, Peaches, who is the main female, one of the main female rats. There's not a huge number of them, but so Peaches is kind of like his acolyte, so she tends to be with him, she tends to...
Carrier of Mr. Bunsey.
Yeah, she carries the book around. She quite often has light. Yeah. That's the other thing, because rats obviously live in the dark and they are nocturnal creatures. But these rats, the young ones particularly, get a bit scared about shadows, so they actually like to have light around, which is a divide between the older and younger rats, which we'll get to another character. But she's the one who came up with the image language that they have. So they have, this is the main illustrations in the book, is stuff Peaches drawn, which is like little, kind of quite simple drawings that clearly represent rats, but one of them, which is obviously a very foundational depiction of Dangerous Beans' philosophy and that other people have, and Peaches is very much, it's her whole thing, is the shape of a rat made up of other rats, which is quite cool.
Yeah.
And then there's other things, they've got something like a sign, the trap means like death, and so there's various things that are instructions to them, but it's just little pictograms, but it's quite nice, but that's pretty cool.
And it's the way to pass on information, which is,
And then later it becomes like a second language that's used.
Yeah, but, it's how to build in society that way, and it's an important part of their sort of building themselves up to be more than just animals.
Well, it's interesting because they still separate themselves. They call themselves the clan, but then they call all other rats kikis.
Yeah.
So there's various times when a word is used that's very kind of sort of, there's a lot of K sounds in it. Yeah. There's clearly a sound in rat that they use. So kikis is the main thing they call other rats. And there's an element of should we be working with them? Are we above them and they're below? So there's different kind of ideas there. But there's also sometimes times when they would swear and times when they use words that might not be quite so kid appropriate. They just kind of put like a rat sound in there. Do we want to go for other rats? Do we want to go to human character then back to the rats?
Yeah, we'll keep going with the rats.
Okay. So there's Ham and Pork, who is the old leader. So he's one of the oldest ones, by which we might mean like at most 3 years old.
Yeah, I mean...
2 and a bit. But he remembers and grew up very much before...
Where he's an old rat, but still able to fight off a challenge.
Yeah, well, because he's the leader. So that's, again, you've got this thing where it's very dominating. And I mean, the thing is, the rats have a language, but they also have a lot of the language is gesture and body language, which is how animals work. And there's a whole thing quite early on that's established, that a sort of crouching down thing. Because at one point someone says sir, and it's like, you didn't actually say sir, but there's like a crouching motion you do, which shows that you are dominant to me, that the rats do. So Ham Pork has been, the old leader, he's big and muscly, but he was clearly well into adulthood for a rat when the change happened. So he still remembers a lot of the old ways and finds this new thing a bit uncomfortable, and he wants to keep his position as leader, but he doesn't like the new ways of thinking. He doesn't think it's rat-like to be, nervous about the dark or shadows. And people are talking about, the bone rat and what comes after.
Yeah.
He's like, well, why would we think about this sort of stuff? And there's other younger rats who normally I think he would expect to challenge him for the dominant position, haven't, but he's always kind of aware that might be happening or coming.
Yeah, he's chief of the old guard, a bit of an, in an uncertain place.
But he can't show any uncertainty, that's the thing.
And he's not used to this, so he's, for a rat, propositioned Peaches a few times and obviously got...
I think the idea is that he finds it weird that Peaches is like... Well, again, it doesn't say this very explicitly, but it's the idea that presumably he gets first pick of the females.
Something like that, but
and
basically...
Peaches has said no, and he's like, "That what?"
Yeah, and doesn't understand that, it's like...
Because again, there's one younger female that's mentioned, and then there's one female who doesn't ever really get to say anything, but who's Big Savings.
Yes.
And Big Savings is clearly, I guess, the matriarch of the group. So she seems to be the one that's, like, again, an older female, but she tends to be with the rats. Because it's very clear there are always pregnant rats and rats that with young. Which, I mean, again, is how rat groups work. Yeah. So they're travelling around, but so those are kind of kept out of the things that, they're, kind of, I guess, away from the front lines, back a bit, somewhere a bit safe, wherever they go. And
they get, especially I mentioned when, towards the end, when you've got the tough, the other rats running around that they have to deal with, they get sent, specifically people get sent back to protect them, so they're not, while the scam is happening, they're around, but they're not really...
They're not in the action, No. Well, that's what happens with female characters.
Yes.
Yeah, a bit. But it's interesting because it actually... The book shows kind of generational changes in thinking, even though it's been such a short time span. But I think that's probably quite good for a book for kids.
Yes.
It would make sense this guy thinks like this, because most of his life it was like this. But these ones think a different way because stuff's changed, and that's what they're used to, which is different to what he's used to, which I think is... Like, it's not hammered home at any point, but I think it's like a useful thing to have.
Yeah, and I mean, I think Ham Pork, in some respects, is slowly... He has changed. He's changed about as far as he's going to. But the fact he doesn't shut everything down, he lets things happen. He doesn't go, nope, this is not the right way, we're not doing it. He accepts that, a certain degree, things are changing whether he likes it or not.
I think he almost doesn't... I think he assumes he will be challenged physically, because that's how it works. But the main one he's worried about doing that isn't interested in doing that.
No.
And just kind of works around him. And I think he kind of is sort of aware he's being managed, but doesn't have...
But I think
a way of dealing with that.
And so yes, there's this other rat called Dark Tan.
Yeah, Dark Tan's next on
who's the
head of traps.
Yeah, he basically deals with the trap finders, the whittlers, and the third group. Can't remember now. There's the three groups that he sent out to.
Okay.
There's the group to go out and...
I thought he was the one in charge of the traps, and then he just told the whittlers to go.
Okay, well, anyway, the point is, he holds a station of respect. The rats, in the clan, respect him, do as he says. But he also recognises though that there's a couple of points where he could challenge Ham and Pork, and he recognises that actually that it's not a good idea to, because it would cause...
he's always deferential, so he always makes sure he crouches. And sometimes Ham and Pork will be like, no, not this, and Dark Town will kind of have to work around him a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got this big focus on traps, so he knows the names of various traps, he knows the makes, he knows how you can disarm them, he knows this, he knows that.
He's got tools.
He's got tools. He's also figured out dealing with poisons. So the whittling, like weeing on stuff, that's what it's called, isn't it?
Yeah.
The idea is that in order to scare the townspeople enough to get them to call the rat catcher, they have rats kind of visibly weeing stuff. Although actually research has shown that rats are usually like weeing a little bit almost all the time. It's just a thing they do. It's how they work. But anyway, if they go out and do that visibly, then it makes... So you've got the whittlers, but there's also they found certain kind of poisons, certain things you kind of have to bury and then wee on it to show that, oh, there's poison here and that's not safe and keep away. Eventually, Darktan is in a position where he does have to be the leader.
Yes.
And it's kind of figuring that out, and it's a different kind of leader to Hammondpork. Because I think Darktan probably could have taken Hammondpork on a bit because he's younger and faster and more willing to use his head, but in a pure strength match, it might not have worked out. And then Sardines, he'll get to, kind of encourages Darktan and how to do it, but in a new kind of leadership, which has a certain amount of, not quite show, but like messaging and how you convey things.
It's I'll just check what the other platoon was. It was so we had the whittlers, the trap finders, and the other ones that basically went out and just caused a mess, stealing people's teeth and that.
Oh, I just assumed that was kind of the same thing as the whittlers.
No.
Oh, okay, right.
Sorry, I got distracted by looking at the book.
Did you have anything to say about Darktan?
Yes. It's a very nice colour.
Yeah, that was the one that I felt wasn't a food name. So
No.
Is that from a food packet?
No, I've got plenty of paints that got Darktan. Yeah, everyone respects him. He becomes a bit more of a, as leader also, but more of a... He goes through this kind of spiritual journey in some respect.
Before that is... Because he's the one that goes to rescue the rats from the rat fighting pit.
Yes.
Yes. And he is the one who almost burns down the barn with all the humans.
But that's after he's run into the trap.
Isn't that when he runs into the trap?
No. So
is it?
No. So he goes down. So basically, Hammondpork gets captured. Because he's just full of rage. All of this pent up annoyance that's becoming, just come out with it. So him and a load of regular rats have been dumped into a fighting pit.
Yeah, with a terrier.
With a terrier. And so Darktan and a few of the other rats have got to rescue him. So, yes, Darktan bungee down, grab Hammondpork, but then Darktan
is stuck in the ring with the dog.
He's that's where he wants to be. Because he's got a sword. He then fights the terrier and gets out of the pit.
The author's note points out that the way that the Darktan attacks the terrier, who's called Jacko, was actually a way that rats have been known to escape from a rat pit.
Yes, I mean you go for the low hanging fruit where possible.
Apparently.
Yeah. So while he is legging it out of the barn, he heads to the nearest exit that he can see and runs straight into a trap.
Yes, that was it. I knew he was running. I thought he was running from. Okay, yeah.
No, he runs straight into a trap.
But I thought he was going to burn. I thought he was already angry about what the humans were doing.
I think he was,
and then he was going to burn it, decided not to, and then he ran from the trap.
No.
Okay, I might be getting the order on that.
No, so he gets into the. I mean, he might be annoyed and might have considered it before, but the kind of way you see him make that decision. Is after he's been really freed from the trap, after he's had this kind of spiritual... Because I thought it all happened
quite quickly, but yeah, okay. Yeah, so he basically... Bear in mind, he's the one who tells everyone to be careful, he trains up all the ones who detect traps, and he runs right into one in this moment of extraness. But I thought it was him feeling it was best to get away than to take revenge, because I thought that was what was driving him, because it's like, actually I need to get away.
No, I think he was just
because he does have matches, and he's like, this barn would go up really easily, and, it would... I think these dogs and the humans, right?
He was just getting away at that point. It's when he joins back up with the others at the top, basically lights a match and looks at it, and then lets it go
we'll
out.
see him think that, but I think I think maybe I'm getting confused. He thought about the burning earlier, so that might be it. But yes, he gets caught in a trap, but it's not fully down, so
it's quite an old trap, so it doesn't quite.
Yeah, but he's got teeth marks of trap along his stomach, and he has. Yes, as you say, the spiritual experience.
Yeah, it's basically, and afterwards they look at him and go as if, the younger rats especially, as if he's basically seen off the big rat.
The bone rat.
Bone rat, yes. Basically he's gone, I've looked into literally the jaws of death and come out of it. He was already pretty well respected.
Yes, so then when he is becoming leader, Sardine's the one who tells him, but you're marked, you have to make this a thing. So Sardines is this kind of show rat.
Yes. He's a fancy rat.
Sardines has a little tiny hat and a little cane, and he tap dances, and he not only steals the teeth, but he's very theatrical when he's sort of being like, look, we're a plague of rats, the humans. But he also understands showmanship.
Yes.
And he is kind of getting Darktan to do not quite like PR exactly, but like messaging, and a bit like, well, actually you can do this. So it's not well, I'm bigger than you and I can fight you kind of leadership. Yeah. It's the, but look, I'm leader. So he's the one who sort of says, this is how you can use kind of the ideas people have. You can use a story. Not necessarily telling the whole story, which obviously we have, Dangerous Beans, very story focused. We'll get to Militia. Yeah, so he ends up being not just a show rat, but also kind of Darktown's advisor. It's also interesting at the end when Darktown is talking to the human mayor, and Darktown says, I told him, meaning Dangerous Beans, you've got to be practical. And the mayor is like, it's just like I always tell my daughter. Stories are just stories. Life is complicated enough as it is. We have to plan for the real world. There's no room for the fantastic, which is funny given this is a fantasy. But again, it's the idea that these characters even being together and talking to each other is part of something a bit fantastic and something that becomes a story.
Yeah.
Yes, so those are the kind of main rat characters. And then if we get to Militia.
Militia, who, yes, very much lives in stories, but much more of a fantastical, grim fairy tale. Well, some of them are grim fairy tales, some of them are...
Well, yeah, again, with the Ubervold, I guess, the kind of Germanic kind of thing. But yeah, so Militia is the mayor's daughter in Bad Blintz. And yeah, she obviously reads a lot and has gotten very focused on stories and how things are supposed to be. And she'll actually kind of overwrite what people say or what happens because it doesn't fit the story. So Maurice and Keith, she's the one who asked Keith his name, because that's what humans do, meets her. So, I mean, she makes the point that, because when they arrive at town, it's not like a rich town with loads of food. It's actually very impoverished.
Yeah.
And she says the mayor's family eat badly too. It's a show of solidarity. And Militia says, I think once you've shown solidarity, you should be allowed just a little extra. She's obviously quite a terror. Like, it's very clear at one point when she runs off for, like, ages and her father doesn't naturally look for her, and the watchmen in town seem to know her, and it's clear there's been a lot of Militia's done a thing again.
Or malicious stories.
Yes. So Maurice realised Militia's mind works differently than other people's. She understands the hard things, talking animals. Because that's the thing, the fact that the rats and the cats can talk doesn't faze her. She doesn't even think about it, but she makes up her mind about things by making a story out of it. So like with Keith, mentioning being found, and she, I bet you're really a prince. Was there a label left? Or some sort of note or something with you when you were left from doorstep. And he's a bit like, it said like 2 pints of milk and some strawberry yoghurt. Yes. So there's a bit where she gets Maurice and Keith to hide somewhere and she says, we have to do a knock and do a special knock. And it's like, well, why don't we say it? She's like, no, you have to do the knock. It's like, why? Because like a different talking cat is doing it. And there's bits like she thought animals were just people who hadn't been paying attention. Well, the other thing is, like, she obviously thought it was no good looking inconspicuous, unless people could see you were being inconspicuous. People in the street actually stopped to watch her as she sidled along walls and scuttled from one doorway to another. Keith and Maurice strolled after her, and no one paid them any attention. So it's this idea of somebody who's being very dramatic about things, and then anything that's an unnecessary confrontation or spoils the story. And then later, her and Keith are in actual danger, and she has this big bag of stuff ready for events. So she's got, I've got, you can use, and again, this is stuff that's from classic kids books. Like, you can use a piece of paper and a hair grip to like get a key out of a door. It's like, and then it makes a good point. And I mean, I, as someone who read Ian Brighton quite a lot when I was younger, like preteen, was very much, there was a bit where it's like, you put some paper under the door, and then you like knock the key out from the other side, and you pull it back under, and it's like, a lot of doors fit properly in frames, which I did realise quite soon. But it's that thing, it's like, I've read this, and so she's read detective stories, and she read fairy tales, and she's got aunts that she claims to have aunts who are
famous
Grimm
writers,
Yes, it's basically the Grimm brothers, but they're sisters.
Yeah.
But various points, characters have to go, this is real life, isn't a story. There isn't some kind of magic that keeps you safe and makes crooks look the other way and not hit you too hard and tie you up next to a handy knife and not kill you. Although, on the other hand, Militia with Keith is a bit like, well, don't you have any sense of drama? And at one point somebody accused her and says, you lied. And she's like, I just told a story. It was a good one, too. So she's obviously a bit of a difficult character in this respect, in that, she sort of thinks she's helping them, she's going along with stuff, but she can be a bit of a liability.
Absolutely. No concept of actual danger. Because, let's be honest, they kind of end up in quite a dangerous situation,
Basically, there are two rat cats in town who keep claiming they have rat tails and they keep getting a load of money, and then they're the ones with the most money, but all the food's gone. But then it turns out they're the ones who are actually stealing or taking food.
Basically, it's basically a big racket, just,
Yeah, and they're But they're actually breeding the rats to send to the rat pits.
Yeah.
And yes, and there's horrible bits. There's all these cages of rats that are so like what the rat farm thing, isn't it? And they're so badly together that some of them are eating each other. And it's again they're a bit more grim than you think, something that's for kids.
But obviously the two children end up quite a dangerous situation. They're completely at the mercy of these two really nasty guys.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't for the fact it is a story, they get locked away in a basement room.
Yeah, I mean, there's a bit earlier where Maurice says to Keith, it's like, I was just trying to keep her talking in case she turned violent. She's gone in the head, if you ask me. She's one of those people, like, actors, acting all the time, not living in the real world at all. Like, it's all a big story.
Because, I mean, if it wasn't for the fact that they had the backup of, Maurice and the rats, they could have ended up being stuck there. They could have ended up being killed to protect the hits, So, yeah. Dangerous in our own way.
Yes, although Melicia's also the one who says the stuff about Mr. Bunsey and how it's a whole series of books. And he's like, if people are going to make up stupid stories about animals pretending to be humans, at least there could be a bit of interesting violence. Is this Pratchett making a comment on his own book in which there is quite a bit of interesting violence?
Quite possibly,
yes, I mean, the other slightly grim bit. So as well as Darktown having a moment where he's a bit like, I could light this barn on fire, and then the humans and dogs that have been basically doing the rat pit would be burned, and then he doesn't do it. There's also a bit where it seems a bit like Keith put rat poison in the rat catcher's drinks, which again would be a bit that's a bit grim. And it seems like they had so what they've done is they've kind of told them they've done that and they've locked them in a room, but what they've actually given them is a lot of laxative.
A lot of laxative.
And then they give them the antidote,
which is more laxative.
I mean, later people will be like, well, where are the rat? Because the kids have to come to town to explain what's happened and so, well, where are these? Oh, because the other thing is the rat catchers have been taking the town, as well as running these rat pits, the rat catchers have also been taking a load of the town's food and, like, selling it down the river.
Yeah.
And when people find them again, they're not, well, they're not necessarily, they're just very, they're a bit like, if you give us trousers, we will do anything you want.
Yeah.
We just need clean trousers. So there's that. That was probably something grim because I think they were in that room for like a day.
Yeah, it's not very nice.
So it's just implied, but yes. Yeah. The other sort of antagonist in the book, because it's clear that there's something weird happening in these times. Because the point is, the rats, the clan, go into this town. It's clearly more impoverished than previous towns they've done. I mean, Maurice has this whole spiel about, the government. Well, we can take things from the government because they're bad. Because in most towns, like, there's a town council, there's a mayor, and they're all getting fat and stuff. But Melicia's father is obviously a very hardworking person who is purposely also, like, keeping to the same rations as everyone else. So there's not that much to eat and stuff. But then also, there are rat tunnels. There are tunnels where rats would be. There are no living rats.
No.
And I think it's got to be a little bit like the Maurice Celeste or something. It's like, why is everything abandoned? Just, again, I think from a rat point of view, perspective, it's almost like a ghost town.
Yeah, lots of old poison and
old traps
that haven't been set
but
off.
No living rats.
Yeah.
And then, so as well as the rat catchers doing this sort of like dodgy humans stealing and defrauding and, massive animal cruelty. I mean, I guess rat catchers paid to do animal cruelty, but like extra animal cruelty, but they're, farming the rats. The other thing that's below ground is weird, because what happens is when they start to, the clan starts to get closer to it, a lot of them suddenly start acting just like kikis again, like they've lost their thought. They start running. And both Dangerous Beans and Maurice notice there's something trying to talk to them in their heads. Maurice ends up crawling through these sort of spaces under the town, like the basements and the cellars and some pipes and I think there's a sewer as well.
Yeah, there's all sorts of stuff.
All that underground stuff that we don't deal with. and this thing is trying to talk to him, and he sort of realises it's seeing through his eyes, but it can't tell what he thinks. It's just guessing. So at one point he has to navigate around with his eyes closed so that it can't see. And then it sort of tries to get Dangerous Beans. And then even with the rat catchers, he's like, at one point, it's like, well, the rat catcher was talking like something told them something and they thought it was their idea. A little bit like how Gaspode would say something. It's like, give the little dog a sausage.
Yeah.
And the person's like, I guess I must have thought that.
Yeah.
But it's that thing, but it's more malicious. So what it is a rat king. Which, and again, in the...
Not many rats in a trench coat like the Malifaux Ratkins are, which are far more fun than the actual Rat King in this book.
Oh, Rat King. Yeah, well, I mean, Rat King is a concept I've come across a few times, I think, before and since reading this. Actually, again, the author's note, Pratchett makes the point that Rat Kings really exist. How they come into existence is a mystery, but Militia mentions a couple of theories in the book. And he does mention, actually, he does mention Dr. Jack Cohen for more modern and depressing versions of Rat Kings. But yes, it's obviously based on something very cool. But the idea is that the rat catchers create a ratkin by kind of pinning the tails of about 8 rats together, and it becomes like a Gestalt entity. I was just thinking, yes, Gestalt entity. And I mean, you get like in the Nutcracker, the king rat's kind of the bad guy, and that I think in some versions has like multiple heads.
Right, yeah.
I think I don't think they often do it that much in the ballet, but I've definitely seen a version where it's a bit like the Rat King and there's like many heads.
Yeah.
Also in Hilda, certainly the TV series, there's a bit where they meet a Rat King, but it's basically like a weird Katamari ball of like rats, but that operates as a single thing. So in this, it's this Rat King that basically it's controlling all the rats. So the ones that panicked in the cage, I think, does it feed off that or something?
Yeah.
But it just controls them, and then so some of the clan stop thinking, which really upsets Dangerous
Overwhelmed
Beans.
by fear.
Because it broadcasts its fear and pain. But it's the reason that Under the Tunnels is so weird. So that's almost a bit more fantastical than it. But that's the bit where it tries to convince Dangerous Beans, it's like, we'll be against the humans, we'll create this rat thing. And that's when he's like, no, you're a liar. You're not doing this for the rats, you're doing this for yourself. What one rat can think can be brave, right? But a bunch of rats is a mob. A bunch of rats is just a big animal with lots of legs and no brain. And Dangerous Beans, no, that's not true. Together we're strong. And it's like, actually, a lot of them were behaving like that, and even the clan did. But then once they got away from that influence... Yeah. But that's the kind of... And that's quite creepy, actually. I read this. I was like, I don't remember this book being that creepy. But again, I don't remember it very well, so...
I mean, interestingly, this is the second book in a row where a knotty problem is solved.
Yes, that's true, yes. I hadn't thought of that, but yeah.
Yeah, so the resolution of the Rat King is basically Maurice proceeds to... use his claws and to sever the linkage.
There's also the bit, so again, in the course of this, Dangerous Beans gets very disillusioned. There's that and the Miss Bunsey stuff, and he's basically killed, and as is Maurice. Now, is this why Death likes cats so much? Because he meets them all 9 times?
Possibly, yeah.
Because the point is that the Death of Rats turns up, Maurice tries to keep him away from Dangerous Beans, and then Death himself turns up and says, stop doing that to my associate, who's the Death of Rats. And is also obviously the bone rat that they keep talking about. So they've got that much right. And maybe what Dark Tansy is not fully clear.
Yeah.
And Death's a bit like, well, how many lives do you have left? And he's got some. And Maurice is like, can I give one of my lives for...
Well, it doesn't really say, he basically goes, so the Death goes, well, that leaves you with 4. And he goes, 3. It's like, no, 4, no, 3. And if space out, it's like, I have came for 2 lives... I have gone with 2 lives.
Yes. So the point is the Rat King manages to turn Maurice into just a cat for a bit. Yeah. And so it's like, did he kill Dangerous Beans? Quite possibly, because Dangerous Beans believes in Maurice right up until the end. But then, and then Maurice specifically asks not to remember this bit once he's back to consciousness. But yeah, and then he comes back with Dangerous Beans and... Yes, because that's how Maurice dispatches the Rat King. It's not some sort of plan. He's been turned back into a cat, and he's like, ooh.
Cat does what cat does.
Yeah, which I think was probably the Rat King's miscalculation there.
Yeah, one rat or many rats.
But again, the fact that Death likes cats, and it's the first time I'm like, does he just meet all the cats 9 times? Is this what happens?
Possibly, yeah.
And then the end of the book is actually the humans, Militia and Keith and Maurice and the rats coming together with the town council, exposing what's happened. And then they basically become what Hamlin pretends to be.
Yes.
They're a bit like, think of the tourist revenue if we have a town that also has, like, loads of rats. And, like, we could have, like, shows in the square and stuff. And I'm like, I've been to Hamlin. And yes. Except that's children dressed as rats. Because they do, certainly in the holidays, they have, like, a Pied Piper show and a load of school children dressed as rats. They do the whole thing. And you can buy, like, rat and mouse stuff everywhere. Obviously, at the age I was then, I was like... That's a lot of fun. I still have a soft toy called Hamlin upstairs. But yes, so it's like Hamlin, but with actual rats and cooperating.
It's kind of, and it is a sort of adjustment of Dangerous Beans' idea of going off to this island somewhere. It's actually, no, this is actually...
I think that was the point. It's like, where would this island be and how would you get there? And what would you have there? How would that work?
What would your society... Whereas, because let's be honest, rats...
Rats forage from humans.
Yeah, so
were they going to farm?
Intrinsically linked with humans. So this just means that actually they can come to a cooperation with the humans rather than it being antagonistic or them trying to thieve things. It's like, no, there's the rat tax. You get, you bake some cookies... you put one near the rat hole. You know,
I mean, it's not like people don't leave milk out for the fairies.
No, exactly.
Like, you know,
but then
you can see these rats. You can talk to them
for the cost of one cookie. The rest of your cookies are safe from any rats.
And there's a whole thing. And then there was some talk about how they might have rat watchmen. It's like, but if human watchmen can stop rats, can the rat watchmen stop humans? And there's this all this thing. And at one point they have they have all these subcommittees. Like that's subcommittee 17, and that's when Darktown and the mayor are talking and saying about being very practical. But yes, it then is this sort of kind of happy, and it's like your rat utopia probably doesn't work because where is the food coming from? But you can create something here. And again, Maurice's dream seems to be one of like retiring in comfort, and that's why he wanted the money, because he understood how that worked. But then he could be quite comfortable here, and again, you're still doing things and having some sort of role and stuff. And all the street signs have like little rat versions of the name.
The one thing we haven't spoken about briefly, and it turns up at the end, is the rat catcher himself. So the rat piper, they bring an actual piper in, and he's got this assistant, and he's an
old man.
He does all the classic, it's a call out. There's a call out fee, and there's wear and tear on the.
He's basically his Maurice. So all these rat people have like an assistant. It's just that Keith is fake and his is a cat. But I was like, he's this guy's Maurice. They've all got an agent.
And basically, in order to try and get make as much money off this as possible.
Because Keith is about, and then the rat piper kind of makes clear, it is kind of a scam. Yeah. We're all doing it. We're all doing something now.
Yeah, but they do a duel, so basically it's like each of them gets to try and summon as many rats as they can. Obviously, Keith wins because
he's friends with a load of rats.
Who controls the rats?
He doesn't control them; they're their rats.
Okay, yes, true, yes, but
he's mates with them.
The point is, one turns up.
They're in cahoots
for him, and then for the rat catcher, nothing turns up. It's just a bit of a fun, and the rat catcher does show Keith the kind of secret behind it, which is a setting on the whistle that does basically a pipe that's a different frequency that basically chases the
rats don't like and chases them off. Yeah, yes.
But yes, it's all a scam. That's the kind of the point.
Yes. Did we want to talk maybe a little bit about what this might be in conversation with?
Yeah, we mentioned the other, so obviously Mr. Bunsey is...
Oh, sorry, just before we get started, it just occurred to me I was going to go back to when they're doing all the subcommittees on how they're going to run the town as being a human and rat cohabitation. The thing about having all these subcommittees is remind me a little bit of the Vecinari thing. So we put people in subcommittees.
They can go talk there.
Yeah.
Anyway, yes. So Mr. Bunsey has got various links. So we talked about Mrs. Frisbee and the Rats of Nim.
Well, that's not the Mr. Bunsey thing.
That's not so much business.
That's Dangerous Beans thing.
That's more the rats themselves.
The rat utopia. Yeah. So Mrs. Frisbee and the Rats of Nim is basically this idea that you have rats that were like altered in a lab, which is Nim, which stood for something. And so I read this. See, this I remember better because I read this quite a few times as a child. And they create this kind of study, but they have like electricity and lifts.
So yeah, the difference there.
They're very technological rats.
Yeah, the rats can.
In fairness, I don't think they have electricity in Discworld.
No,
so.
But Nim is kind of creating their own society and mimicking humans. Yeah, so they've got lifts and lights and
stealing the electricity from the farmhouse.
Yeah. And, they use pulleys and levers to...
that's how they're called, to lift.
To move the rock that they need to move. And so, the clan is very similar to the Rats of Nim.
Well, I think the idea of we are something different. We have been made this way by... Well, I mean, the Nim particularly, rats, we're made this way by humans, but we are rats, but we're our own thing. We're not going to do it... we're using human stuff, piggybacking off it, but we want to go and do our own thing, which feels like Dangerous Beans' vision is a bit like we will go somewhere else and start our own... utopia away from the humans and probably also away from the other rats. Although I think, again, there's a bit of, discussion within the clan as like, well, how much kinship do we have with the Kikis?
Yeah.
And again, the Rats of Nim didn't seem to mention other rats particularly.
No. But the Mr. Bunsey stuff, the kind of the animals dressed up and
I mean, the animals having dear little clothes does seem very Beatrix Potter, but Beatrix Potter's actually darker than you think. Like, everyone's like, Peter Rabbit, isn't it cute? But actually, it's from the Victorian times. It was about that, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But, I mean, if you read it, like, yes, Peter's gone to Mr. McGregor's garden. Mr. McGregor murdered his father and put him in a pie. That's made clear early on. Benjamin Bunny's father turns up. Is he Benjamin Senior? And, like, threatens to beat them because that's just how you dealt with children back then. And there's a lot of, sort of cute imagery of him. But you're like, actually, it's kind of dark. There's various ones where... You know, I mean, Jemima Puddle Duck, you know, her eggs get eaten.
Yeah.
The Bitchy Spot stuff is a bit darker, whereas I feel like Mr. Bunsey is a lot more like some of the modern picture books you get. Like, we have some where it's like nighttime bunny, and it's like, here's a bunny in a jacket, and he's going out for a walk, and he's scared by... You know, I think the way Militia speaks about it, I think it's quite fairly thin on plot, and quite cutesy. Yeah. And quite, you know, like animals in dear little coats going on a very mild adventure. Like that one with those animals rescuing another animal with a balloon. Yeah. Didn't make any sense. Because how did they inflate the balloon, Dave? Yes. How did they inflate? You can have all the material for a balloon, but how do you inflate it?
Yes. We're not going.
Where's the hot air come from? Anyway, we're past the phase of having to read a lot of picture books, but, you know, like we've been through that period. But as you say, there is maybe like the Darkwood thing does have echoes of perhaps Wind in the Willows, which and in that the animals are very much the same kind of status as humans.
Yes,
I mean that's a bit confusing because you're just like, what size are these animals? Well, this is so I listened to Eleanor and Alistair read that, in which, how they describe it, two red-headed comedians read classic children's books. It's quite funny, but they did Wind in the Willows. They're like, what size are these animals? Are they the actual size of rats and toads, or are they like people size? But how can a toad drive a car unless he's...
I go to prison and get... Yeah. It is very strange.
And I mean, the Mr. Toad bit is one bit, and then there's the other bit, which I kind of liked, but I see why perhaps which is the more like Rat and Mole, who are clearly wearing some form of clothing. Although at one point when they meet, Rat says something about Mole having a very fine velvet suit, and I'm like, is that not just his fur? It's unclear. But messing about in boats and that whole thing, but a lot of that's a little bit more leisurely, and some of it's quite numinous. Yeah. But the bit where Mole goes into the Darkwood is quite a sort of key bit, and then because that's where the like the ferrets and the weasels and the people live. The other podcasts, they quite often talk about a class, because a lot of the stuff is doing largely British and some American books, but a lot of it is class stuff. Yeah. And the Riverbank animals are very middle class. Toad's clearly upper class because Toad Hall. But it's clear, you know, Rats were like, oh yes, we describe Wildwoods. Oh yeah, they're fine people. I know quite a lot of them. It's like, well, we wouldn't really go there. Yeah. And I'm like, is the problem that they're working class? Mm. So that's not really Mr. Bunsey. It's just, I've just thought of that.
And obviously, Brett mentioned earlier Red Wall. I don't think it's so much connecting with Red Wall, because Red Wall is very much its own thing. I mean,
I've never read Red Wall, which again, now that I think about it, is a bit odd. But I think I saw it and thought, I think it just looked slightly intimidating to me at the time. I was quite small. Yeah. I was, for a while, quite a sensitive kid.
It's interesting. Obviously, it has many books in the series.
There also seems to be a lot happening.
Animals, but that's all the animals can talk, but they are actual animals. But one of them does have a sword.
I was going to say it looked a bit questy and medievalish.
It's a combination. It's many things. I mean, because Red War is a monastery.
Oh, okay. I've literally just seen the covers.
As I say, it's an interesting, talking animals, but not really painting.
I mean, there's also Dick King Smith books, which again I read quite a lot of. I mean, there's various animals with that, but the ones, I mean, Magnus Power Mouse I had on audio book and listened to like a lot.
Yes.
And then, you know, the Terrible Trins and How Green Was My Mouse. A lot of those are mice rather than rats, but again, the sort of idea of... That's why I was a bit like, doesn't have to be a Discworld thing, there can just be talking animals or animals that are doing slightly intelligent things. Although in Dick King's books, it's kind of that all the animals can talk to each other and are at some level of intelligence, and humans don't just know that. Because there's a bit at the end where there is a rat catcher in Magnus Power Mouse, but he ends up like adopting Magnus. But there's this interesting thing where he's like, everything I can see says mouse except the size.
Yeah.
Because Magnus is bigger than a rat. But now I think about it, I'm like, well, you can tell the difference between rats and mice. It's not just the size.
No.
But I know not everyone can do that. That's just a weird thing I can do.
Yes.
But yeah, so I feel like there are a lot of... And I don't know how much this book is in conversation with any of this. Nim feels like the main one that maybe is. But it's just an area where there's a lot of things,
yes,
you know, that it's touching on.
Yeah, no, and I think it's in a tradition of talking animals, and
and again, I think is that why it's the young adult book, because, you know, that seemed more like the fodder for that.
But also, can you get away with talking about some of these subjects easier when it's animals?
Well, I mean, cannibalism, certainly.
Well, yeah.
There's more cannibalism in this, and I think, well, I don't think the other Discworld books really have that so much.
Not really, no. But I'm saying, is it more approachable to put that in coach it in terms of, talking animals than try and write a story touching on these subjects with actual humans?
But a lot of fantasy, certainly, but also sci-fi and some historical will quite often be a bit like, we're going to talk about this thing, but we're going to set it somewhere that isn't now and some time that isn't now to talk about this in a fantastical or science fictional or historical context, but it relates to... The other thing that makes it very clear that it's for younger readers is it's real quick to read.
Yes, also has chapters.
That's true, it does have chapters.
Which we mentioned with the Mr. Bunsey thing. But
yes, because it's the first Discworld book with chapters. Obviously, those are coming ever more. But I found I read through it really quick.
Yes.
But of course, it's for people who perhaps have less reading comprehension than we do, which is fair enough. Yeah. Like, kids. And I think there's not really the footnotes. There's less asides.
Yeah.
I mean, going through looking for puns. Bad Blintz. So bad means bath, which is actually mentioned in that. Blintz is like a kind of food.
Yeah.
But is it like a blintz that's bad? Like you've eaten one, it went bad? That's not so clear. It does mention like other towns have gone to. One of them is pork scratchins.
Yep.
But that's like the main punny bit. So I think it's not funny, but I think it's more the stuff's kind of within it. And it's more how the characters react to each other. And there are some like humorous conversations and situations, but there's not the kind of like pun a minute, here's all these references.
No, which isn't a bad thing, It's
that's fine. Yeah,
and I think this serves well as a start as a test bed for the YA stuff for We Free Men later. I think we both thoroughly enjoyed Maurice.
Yes, I will probably remember what it's about now.
Excellent. We will be reviewing at some point the Sky TV movie of the
Amazing. Is it just the Amazing Maurice, or has it got the whole title?
It's just called Amazing Maurice.
It's a lot to put on the poster otherwise. It had a very limited cinema release, because I did look at it at the time, and it just didn't seem to be hardly anywhere, and then it's just been on Sky.
Yeah, so it's an animated one. This might prove to be interesting as an adaptation, because there's...
On the cover, the cat is enormous. Like, everyone's like, we're talking cat. I'm like, this cat is the size of children.
And looks in a lot better shape than Maurice is described in the book.
Yes, that looked like obviously a well-fed cat. It's a giant cat, but it looked like plump and fluffy and clean, whereas Maurice is... clearly very... he doesn't have his full ears, he's covered in scars, and he's stripy, but sometimes looks like a black cat just because he's absolutely filthy.
Yeah, so that could be interesting, but we'll get to that.
We'll leave that for another time.
Yes. So, thank you very much for listening.
Thank you.
Next time... Oh, this might be a long one. It is The Night Watch.
Goodness, the only one that's a Penguin classic.
Yes, the Penguin classic book, Night Watch.
We have to build up to that a bit.
Yes. And then we're not far off the third quadrant episode. We've only got then the We Free Men after that, and then we're on to the last leg.
Oh, goodness. Well, I mean, that will still take a year.
That'll still take a while. There's still, because we'll fit some more stuff in, I'm sure. We've still got with the short stories as well to go back to.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, that's beside the point. So thank you very much for listening, and we will catch you next time.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Dining Table Discworld. You can find us on Facebook at www.facebook.com/Dining Table Discworld. You can also find us on BlueSky at dtdiscworld. All our other contact information and credits for our music can be found in our show notes. Thank you for listening again, and we'll see you in our next episode.